Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Yovanov. I'm going to start with a quote from our guest's website. I want to live in a world where people stop apologizing for being more than one thing, embrace what makes them extra, and boldly follow their dreams. And today's guest definitely lives by this quote. They are a multi-passionate, creative entrepreneur. Now, what does that mean? Well, why don't we let today's guest, Allyson Hernandez, explain it to us. Allyson, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
No problem. Now, before we get into all that and your book and everything, I want to know who Allyson is. You know, the listeners want to know in 30 seconds, the 30-second bio of Allyson.
You got it. Well, at the core, I'm a unicorn. As my office, we are on Zoom, so Jean-Paul can see the unicorns behind me. I'm a unicorn, but yeah, I'm not just one thing. I'm an author, I'm a mom, I have 2 teenage boys, I'm a wife, I'm an executive coach, but at the core, I'm an artist. I'm a musician, a singer, an actress, a composer, a writer. So it's really hard for me to say that I'm just one of those things, because I'm all of those things, and all of those parts of me is what makes me me.
A little bit of everything, which is fantastic.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
So I want to, before we delve into everything else, were you always into musical theater? Was that something you grew up with, that you lived with, or is that something you discovered a little bit later in life?
No, it was right away. I think I was probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 when I saw Peter Pan on Broadway, with my mom in New York, and was, saw, well, I think it was Sally Duncan, flying through the air, and was like, yeah, I want to do that. Yeah, I was really young.
Very nice. So did you go to school for musical theater, or?
I did. Yeah. I mean, I was taking voice lessons from when I was probably like 10, was singing in the kids choir at church as soon as I could talk. And yeah, I went to Syracuse University and got a BFA in musical theater.
Nice. And once you got your diploma degree from there, what did you do?
I moved to New York, like all aspiring actresses do. Yeah, no. First, I moved home to save money.
Yeah.
Then I got a job, as my father said, do you want to live at home or do you want to live in New York? And so ironically, I took a job that was so not me. It was like an HR assistant job at a bank. Like, it was the complete, like, penultimate opposite of who I was. I had to wear suits and pearls, and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? But you do what you got to do to live in New York. And that's what I did. Yeah.
I always do that when I'm like, you have to dress up or whatever. Then you realize, oh, it's the money. I need that to live. So you do what you got to do.
Yeah.
So you're in New York, you're doing HR, and you're obviously auditioning stuff. How did that go?
Yes.
And what did you audition for? What'd you get?
There were tons of ups and downs, as all aspiring New York theater actresses know. There's a lot of us. I spent hours waiting online and doing cold auditions and cattle calls, and waiting outside the Equity Building, and to sing 6 bars and then walk out. But I did get some success eventually, so I got my equity card. I booked a national tour. I performed at the Apollo Theater in a gospel musical that was called If This Hat Could Talk. And it was actually the life of Dorothy Height. It was inspired by her life. And I was one of the only Caucasian people in the cast, which was a really interesting experience for me as like a 27-year-old white girl from Jersey. But it was the time of my life. I mean, I was working with George Faison, who won the Tony for choreographing The Wiz on Broadway. So it was pretty amazing, doing what I loved and touring the US. And then the show ran out of money, as shows do.
Yep.
And I came back home and, kept pounding the pavement, did some commercials, did a bunch of cabarets, and then the doors just stopped opening. And I was like, okay, well, what are you going to do? And I had this theater coach, VP Boyle, who is still one of my favorite humans, who said, Allyson, you sound like you're 40, but you look like you're 25. And I don't think this is your time. He said this with all the love in the world. He's like, your sound doesn't match your look.
Mhm.
And I really think you're going to hit it in your 40s. So what are you going to do for the next 10, 15 years of your life?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, shit. I also want to be a mom. So I just thought that theater would come before being a mom. But I guess I'm going to go have some babies. and, and that's what I did. And, now those babies are 10 and 13 and I'm 43. So it's time. It's mama's time.
Nice. And that's the thing. So you want to do it when you're younger, but sometimes, yeah, like you said, you got to grow into, and it's not just that moment. And as frustrating as that is, sometimes it's better just to wait and experience it later. So that's fantastic. So let's talk about the musical itself that you wrote. What was the impetus for writing that?
Yeah, well, it's what I call the combination of a couple key moments that happened. I turned 40. I had the cliche midlife crisis, but I would call it a creative midlife crisis, a creative crisis. And the same week, like 2 days before my 40th birthday, my grandmother Marie, who was a Irish Catholic matriarch of my family. She had 13 children. My mom is one of 13. I have an enormous family, like 27 first cousins. It's probably more than that now, because now we've all have kids and they're having kids, and we're just really big and loud. So turned 40, grandma passed away, was on a business trip for my day job, was watching the Lin-Manuel Miranda documentary on the plane. And he's talking about his writing journey. He's talking about not seeing himself on Broadway and not seeing room for him. And that was part of his inspiration to start writing In the Heights. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Like, if Lin could do it, if Lin could write like the role of his dreams, then like, why can't I do that? Like, why not? And so it was all of these three pivotal moments of like turning 40, having the crisis of like, I'm not creative anymore. What am I? And then like mourning my grandmother and all of that connection of like, wait a minute, well, why don't I write a musical about grandma and I'll play her? Because it's like the best role, and she was super interesting and complicated, and she was a mother that lived this huge life, but she was also musical. She played the piano. She was the heart of our family. Music was always at the heart of our family, and that's really how it started. And I came home from that trip and I called my mom and I just started asking questions. My mom to my aunts and uncles, like, what did grandma want? Like, what did she want at the core in her life before she had 13 kids? What did she really want? And that's how it started. And that, like, I sat down and like wrote the I Want song. That was the first song that I wrote. It was like, okay, what did grandma want? Let's go.
So what's the name of the show and the basic premise of it?
Yeah, so the original musical started, it was called Mother of the Century, which has since morphed into Ballad of Dreams. But the premise is really, it's inspired by my grandmother and my great aunt. So Audrey and Rose, Audrey, inspired by my grandmother, has a big dream to perform at Carnegie Hall. And she's chasing that dream. It's set in the 1940s and pre-World War II, but then World War II comes in and interrupts a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah.
The love of her life. They are both performers and they're auditioning together for Carnegie Hall. Then she has a brother who is the apple of her parents' eye, and she's constantly fighting up against that, like, well, you're the boy, so you get to do all the things, and I'm the girl and I want to do all the things too. And so it really follows Audrey's journey of chasing her big dream, and then Rose's journey, who never ended up having children, and Audrey, who ends up having 13. So these two women who were both independent, but living in a time in the 1940s where society really tried to define that for them. and understanding their life choices and how each of their choices really impacted their path, the sacrifices that they made. And, it's a combination of these two amazing women and me, right? And my life journey in the theater and my experience as a mom and as an artist and as an actress. So it combines all of those worlds together.
Nice. Now, I understand that the show got a couple of readings in New York in 2019 and 2020. How did those go?
Yeah. Oh, they were so much fun. I mean, it was so much work. First of all, my advice to any aspiring composer, lyricist, book writer, librettist, actress is like, don't try to do all of it. Like, get some people to help you.
Yeah.
But because I was also producing it. So it was amazing though, honestly. I mean, I had probably about 12 of really good friends in the room, who were all professional actors, musical theater actors from my Syracuse family and my extended New York City musical theater family. And so we read through the whole script once. I performed all of the songs, and then I had like 3 other actor singers also performing, duets and solos as well. And we did it for like, I don't know, maybe 10 people, but what was really fun, and probably the most rewarding was like the debrief after, was just all of the love in the room of all of these people that love musical theater and that loved me, that really wanted to help get it to the next level. How can we make it better? I could have stayed in that room till like 3 a.m, but Pearl Studios kind of closes at 11. So, yeah.
Very cool. And now this is when the twist happens, where most shows come from a book and go to the stage. Where you decided, I guess, to do the complete opposite, where you took your musical and you turned into a novel.
Yes.
That is a really interesting question, how you go from one medium to the other. So the question is, why did you do it, and how was that experience?
Yeah, it was so much fun, honestly. I have to say, it was so much fun. Why I did it, I mean, really 2 reasons. One, because of COVID, right? I mean, I had done two readings and was on this trajectory of, trying to get it produced. I was hopefully going to do a concert or some staged reading, next. And, we all were locked up and there was no theater for almost 2 years. So, but I realized like, well, what could I do? Right? Okay, I'm stuck home in my office with my laptop. There's still a lot of creating that I could do. And so I really took advantage of that. And after 3 different people in the industry read my script, the first one was the associate creative director at Paper Mill Playhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And he was so kind and generous, and he read the whole script, 130 pages. And then he gave me really, really detailed, specific, critical feedback that devastated me at first. And his first like chunk of feedback was like, I don't think this is a musical. Like this, I think this is a novel, or I think this is a mini series or a movie. It's very cinematic, and I was just like stopped dead in my tracks. I stopped writing for like 3 months. I was like, what do you mean? It's a musical. There's like 30 songs. Like, and that feedback really, really stopped me. And then another person that I met at another theater conference, read it, and he was like, again, I really think this would make a fascinating novel, and you could get this published so much faster and easier than getting it to Broadway. So have you thought about that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, funny you should mention that. Somebody else said the same thing, And then a third person read it who was in the publishing world and was like, I couldn't put it down, this should be a novel. And I said, okay, all right. This is the 3rd time that 3 people have told me the same piece of feedback, and I need to suck it up and listen. And that's really, how I started. I was in a playwriting group through Ken Davenport's company, Theater Maker Studio.
Yep.
And so I was in this playwriting group. We were meeting during COVID once a month over Zoom. And I told them, I'm like, I think I might start turning this into a book. And they were like, what are you smoking? Like, you are crazy. But I started with the first scene, and I just started blowing it out. Making it read like a novel, but I left the lyrics in there.
Yeah.
And then I would, share a chapter. And I remember the first night I shared a chapter from Rose's point of view, and the musical was really all focused on Audrey, the heroine, based on my grandmother.
Yeah.
I wrote a chapter for fun from Rose's point of view, and my playwriting group just like freaked out over it. They were like, this is the best thing you've ever written, and like, okay, we thought you were crazy, but you should keep going with this novel thing. So I did.
Wow.
I did.
And how long did it take you to go from starting with the novel to the end? Because you already had the obviously the meat and the potatoes, the bones, the skeleton there.
I did,
but then you had to kind of change it and modify it.
A
How
lot.
long did that take you?
Oh, good question. I could say it's all a blur, but I mean, it was like the last year, basically, right? It was the last year. I started last February-ish, and had to be done by November. In November, I was still like proofreading and proofreading a lot, and going through copy editing and everything. But yeah, basically from February to November was the time period.
Did you come to any realizations when you were moving from musical to novel that you went, oh, you know what, this makes more sense, and you modified, storylines or something like that? What realizations did you come up with?
Yeah, that's a great question. Lots of realizations. I think where I had the most fun was actually writing from Rose's perspective, because I had spent, again, at this point, it's been almost 4 years since I started writing the musical. So I know these characters, like they are inside of me, and I know Audrey so well. And I knew Rose really well too, but I didn't know her as well as I knew Audrey. So getting to write chapters that, and scene chapters, chapter scenes, it's all the same to me now. That didn't exist in the musical were really fun, because I would start a chapter and be like, I have no idea where this storyline is going with Rose. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Okay. I don't know where that came from. But that was really fun. And at the root, when I started writing, I really wanted the musical to be about two strong women and their life choices, and to really highlight that, like, although these women that were part of my family were making life choices in the 1940s, the choices I'm making and the choices that women are dealing with today are exactly the same. And so I really wanted to highlight that. And I think I've done that so much more so, being able to write 322 pages than trying to cram it all into, a 2-hour, 2.5-hour musical.
Nice. You may be the first person to go from musical to book back to musical if it goes back on the stage.
Yes,
I don't know if it's been done before, but
I know. Well, I probably will. So
nice.
Why not?
So the book is complete. Is it available for people to purchase already?
It is. It published yesterday.
Nice.
Yes, so it is available on Amazon. You can type in Ballad of Dreams by Allyson Hernandez, or you can go to balladofdreams.com and it'll take you right to my book page on my website and just click buy.
That's fantastic. Congratulations on that whole experience and putting that together and getting it out there, because during this pandemic, it's been draining. And it's good. It's great that you were able to find something to focus on and produce and create and bring to life.
Yes. Again, there's so much you can do from home creating. I mean, I think we've seen some of the most creative things come out of COVID, right? Of like okay, well, we're going to have Zoom concerts and we're going to, I don't know. There's so many amazing things that came out of COVID because people were just stuck home.
Yep.
Like my husband's been watching Selena Gomez's cooking show where she's like all during COVID cooking by herself in her home, but they're filming like a famous chef that's not with her, like teaching her how to cook. So, I mean, again, who would have thought of that if they could just be in person next to each other?
I know we've learned so many different skill sets and been forced to change the way we look at things and move forward. That if the pandemic happened, not it happened, and as terrible as it's been, it's moved us forward. We've taken a step back, but we've been able to also take 2 steps forward in a totally new and creative direction. So
absolutely.
So now that the book is done, what's next? Have you thought about what you want to do next, or are you kind of taking a creative vacation? for
What's a creative vacation?
I don't know, just a day or two to decompress. Your book just launched. It's ready to go. But
well, one of my girlfriends mentioned that last week she calls pajama week, so the week in between Christmas and New Year's. And so I feel like I had that week. Like I was in my pajamas every day until like 12 o'clock. So I feel very rested. I binged watched a lot of TV. I ate a lot of really yummy food, watched a lot of movies with my family. But yeah, I mean, what's next is the soundtrack. So part of this whole process, working with NDP, who's my publisher, is that I did an Indiegogo campaign over the summer and I raised over $20,000.
Wow.
And so part of that Indiegogo campaign was not only raising money for the publishing costs, it was also raising money to record a soundtrack of the music, because that's how this whole puppy started, right? So the next big exciting, step is to start putting a team together to record the soundtrack. And then after that, it will be recording the audiobook version of the novel as well. And for that, I'm super excited because I want one of my friends who was in the readings with me to narrate Rose, and I will narrate Audrey. So you'll have those 2 women's voices in your ear listening to the story.
Very cool. You will have to keep us in the loop for the soundtrack of the show.
Absolutely.
We will, as soon as it's ready, you let us know. We will promote the heck out of it on
I love that.
media, and we'll even add it to the station.
Thank you.
On there as well. Well, we got to support each other.
Amazing.
In this crazy business.
Absolutely. And theater people are the best people. So that's what we do. And I'm so thankful for that family, that theater family, because people showed up to my readings. They've read 8 million versions of my script. They've listened to my crappy voice recording demos on my phone, and it's just the power of the theater community and how much we just love what we do. We can't help but help each other, right?
Yep. Well, again, congratulations on the book, the musical, the upcoming soundtrack. I'll say that for now in case I don't see you for a bit. And thank you for coming on the station and the podcast and introducing the world to, the book and the show. So, but
thank you so much.
Before we go, I always like to ask 3 questions of my guests. There's no right or wrong answer, but we're going to get to know you a little bit better. The more in-depth Allyson. We're going to peel back the layers and get to know the true Allyson. So question number 1, what creator or team within musical theater has had a great influence on you? Now, it could be a composer, lyricist, director, producer, actor, stage manager, even. It could be somebody famous, not famous, maybe a teacher. Is there somebody in the community that's had a great influence on you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so many. There's so many, but I'd say the one that has probably impacted this musical the most was Sarah Bareilles. And seeing Waitress, her music, that character, I remember sitting in the audience listening to She Used to Be Mine. I actually then recorded that, and it's on my album of covers on Spotify. And listening to that song was an influence into writing the musical. And I sat down and wrote a song called Mother of the Century And I remember sitting down and saying, I want this to be the She Used to Be Mine of this show. I want this to be that moment. I want women in the audience to feel that moment of asking, is this it? Is this all that I'm meant to be? Like, aren't I more than a mother? So yeah.
Very nice. Correct answer. That's a 1 point.
All right. Woohoo.
Not that there's an incorrect answer for a personal opinion, but it's always good to get it. The first one. That's a nice lob ball, nice and easy. Question number 2. If you had to write about their next musical, what one of the 3 would you choose and why? Would it be about HR? Would it be about coaching? Or would it be about unicorns?
Oh my God. Wow. Well, clearly I want to combine all 3. Because that would be a really interesting and unique musical. Yeah. Oh gosh, I can already see the dancing kick line of unicorns.
And if it's unicorns dancing, you got 4 legs going all at once. That's like
right. And someone in HR telling them they're fired. Yeah, it would. Oh God, there's so much comedy gold just waiting to be written.
I think you might be the only person with the knowledge of all 3 of those things who could do this. So yes, I'm just throwing it out there if it happens.
Thank you for the inspiration.
No problem. Correct answer, by the way. All right. Question number 3, maybe the most revealing of them all. Food in the theater or cell phones in the theater, which is worse?
Oh, cell phones.
Have you had an experience with a cell phone that just blew your mind?
I haven't, but I think it's more just like the light. It's more when people just don't turn the light off, or when it literally rings in the middle of like someone singing the most dramatic moment. And you're like, really? Come on, turn that shit off.
I know. I don't understand people. You can't go 90 minutes or whatever it is without looking at your phone or hearing your phone or remembering to turn off your phone.
Be present. That's what theater is for. Be in the moment.
I know. I agree. And correct answer. So I also would have accepted both are awful. Get rid of them. So, but 3 out of 3. Congratulations, Allyson. There's no prizes. You just get to write a musical now about HR, coaching, and unicorns.
And unicorns.
So.
That is the most amazing challenge I have received today. And so I want to say challenge accepted, but we'll see.
If you don't, I totally understand. If you just go, okay.
Yeah.
Again, thank you. Congratulations on the book. And I hope everybody goes out to check it out. I'll be promoting that on my social media for everyone to learn about and hear. Yeah. And like I said, once the soundtrack's done, you let me know. We'll also promote that as well.
I will. Thank you so much. This has been so fun to just talk about the thing that I love the most, musicals.
We were just speaking with Allyson Hernandez, the writer of Ballad of Dreams. Tune in next week as we'll be speaking with another guest or guests about their life, love, and passion that is musical theater. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanov, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.